NXT Recap Reactions. The Women Takeover NXT usually shines when it highlights the women's division. This was no different, as the women are just the more interesting story. Putting them all together in a summit, including the women from the main roster, showed the yawning gap between the women and the men. Ava announced NXT's representatives at Evolution's Battle Royal: Lash Legend, Lola Vice, Kalani Jordan, Tatum Paxley, Izzy Dame, and Jada Parker. Of course, those string of names brought out Jacy Jayne and Fatal Influence. If I have one criticism of the division, it's that Jacy feels like a non-factor. Besides Fallon Henley's facial expressions that hilariously undermine her at every turn, Jacy's presence is never felt on the show. I know I sound like a broken record, but Fatal Influence's closest analogue is Toxic Attraction. Mandy Rose always felt like a big part of the show. There was no question who was in charge of the crew, and no question which woman dominated the locker room. When the ring fills up with Lash, Jordynne Grace, and Stephanie Vaca, it's easy to lose track of Jacy. Even more so when Maxine Dupree, Natalya, and Jada get some microphone time outside of it. I wish they did more to truly establish Jacy as a force rather than continuously painting her as this vulnerable champ. Not saying there's no value in the latter, but it loses its luster after a while. On the flip side, seeing all those women, including the ones who didn't speak like Ivy Nile and Zelina Vega, just reminds me there are so many options for Jacy's next opponent. Now, conspicuous by her absence was Blake Monroe. She and Jordynne were part of some cute vignettes about the different ways they train. Jordynne hits the gym while Blake hits the mall and the spa. They kept her out of this since she's not involved in the Battle Royal, so better to focus on the women who are, along with Jacy's next contender. I say all this to say I'm not satisfied with the Jacy Jayne story so far. Meanwhile, they're making the other women in the division much more interesting. Some of them are developing mean streaks, some are forming bonds they never thought possible. Others are getting more camera time and feel like integral parts of the show, and naturally setting up feuds that could continue as champion. For Jacy's reign to work, NXT has to make her credible too, not just the women who want her spot.